Hi, this is Brett Ingram, award-winning entrepreneur. And today I want to share with you 7 life-changing impacts of experiencing positive emotions. We covered a list of 20 positive emotions on another episode, and we went in detail about what they are and examples of how to experience them and things like that. Some of them are very common and ones that everybody would recognize. Some of them are a little bit more subtle or a little bit more sneaky, maybe the things that we wouldn't normally associate with an emotion. And we touched on the positive effect that they have on our lives. We glossed over it and talked about some of the positive things. In general, it's pretty intuitive. The idea that if we're experiencing something positive, we're feeling positive, then obviously that in and of itself is something that is beneficial to us and a better way to live than obviously feeling negative. But to really break it down and understand there are actually quantifiable benefits. So we can get more specific about exactly why feeling positive emotions really matters. And it goes beyond just a temporary good mood or burst of energy or whatever else. So let's talk for a few minutes about the actual, real, quantifiable impact that they have on our lives and why they make us better as human beings. So, again, there are lots of ways that experiencing positive emotions improves our lives. And we could go on and list tons of different ones. And I'm sure if we asked 100 people, we would get additional answers that we hadn't even thought of and everything else. So, there's a lot of different things. But let's talk in more detail about 7 awesome benefits, specific benefits that we all get from feeling positive emotions. And this is where it's really powerful because the impact that these things have on our lives is actually pretty profound. So the first of them is enhanced mental health. Experiencing positive emotions can decrease the incidence of mood disorders, reduce stress, and it can mitigate symptoms of depression and anxiety. So just from a general feeling perspective, if we think about our lives and we think about times when we've felt positive and motivated, inspired and upbeat and confident and self assured and all those other kinds of things, and then we contrast that with times where maybe we felt a little down, a little defeated, maybe a little beaten by something, or nervous, anxious, stressed in a negative way, not in a positive way. If we look at those two opposites and we think about our own performance, we think about our own results, our own productivity, our own output, our own impact on other people, our own reactions to other people and how they react to us, it's pretty obvious and clear to anyone who thinks about this honestly that there's no question that we are better off when we're in the positive mind frame. We get more done, we feel better, everyone else around us seems to be happier and reflecting that glow. I don't know if you've ever been in an environment where you've met someone who's like the Debbie Downer character on Saturday Night Live. Rachel Dratch used to play it amazing. It's hilarious. If you haven't seen it, worth looking up. But Rachel Dratch used to play a character called Debbie Downer. And it was always a group of people sitting around, their friends, they're talking, whatever. And she'd always come out with something negative and it would play this song "Wah, wah," every time she would say it. She'd have this expression on her face. And it's funny and it's comedic, but we've all probably run into people that are like that. And they're actually hard to be around. You feel bad, but at the same time, nobody wants to be in an environment where someone is constantly depressed and dragging them down because we feel the same way. The opposite is also true. When we're with someone who's positive and upbeat, they're just more fun to be around, easier to be around, and more friendly and everything else. The general sort of enhanced mental health and just experiencing those positive emotions just in general is better for us. It's better for everything about us, but it also just makes us better versions of ourselves than it is if we're in any of those other states. The second benefit is improved physical health. So, yes, believe it or not, emotions actually translate to actual physical health. My I know somebody, I won't divulge who it is, but I know somebody who was going through a particularly stressful period in her life. And when she was going through that period in her life, she actually started to experience symptoms that were physical. There were things in her physical health that were breaking down. And she actually went to a doctor because she thought she might have some autoimmune disease or she might have some sort of other condition. And she was in a total panic and nervous about it. It turns out it was actually the emotional stress and the state that she was in that was literally causing physical symptoms like issues with her vision, issues with her hearing, and digestive issues and things like that. And once the stress was caused by an external source. Once that stress was gone, all the stuff disappeared. So it literally is so powerful. Our emotions are literally so powerful that they impact our physical health. And the reverse is also true. So people who frequently experience positive emotions have stronger immune systems, they get sick less often, they have lower levels of stress hormones, which in general is good for us. There are moments of time when stress can be good and there are situations, but we don't want to be in a prolonged state of stress, particularly negative stress, and may even enjoy longer lifespans. That obviously is far harder to prove whether someone's in a positive emotional state so they live longer. But the fact is, they generally experience fewer ailments. And because of that, the general physical health is better. That doesn't even go take into account the fact that they're going to have a better energy level, right? So because of that, they're more likely to exercise, eat well, and all these other things. These are just pure benefits from the actual emotional state. So it doesn't even talk about all the stuff it spills over and also impacts. They often also have better cardiovascular health, lower rates of chronic diseases. So when we experience positive emotions, it has an overall effect on our entire body, our immune system, and all the other elements therein. And so there's literally physical health benefits from being in a positive emotional state. That in and of itself is really powerful and reason enough to want to be as positive as we can, as often as we can. A third benefit that's quantifiable and real is greater resilience. One of the knocks on the newer generations coming up is that they don't have the ability to take a punch and get up and keep moving. They give up too easily. They're defeated too easily. They don't have resilience. And when people look at that, oftentimes they blame our generation for that because, as some people would term it, the old helicopter parent thing, but even worse, I don't know if this is a real term or not, but like the snowplow parent, right? The parent who wants to get in there and plow the road for their kids so everything is easy for the kids and they don't experience any challenge or difficulty or resilience. Look, I'm guilty of it myself. You don't like to see your kids struggle, right? So it's difficult to let them have to brook their own disappointment. We want to make their lives better. If we're lucky enough to be in a situation where we aren't fighting for our own survival and to put food on our own tables, then obviously we want what's best for our kids. And so I think it's done out of love, but I do think in some ways we've crippled them by giving them too many, making things a little bit too easy. Somebody said, I don't remember who coined the phrase, but they said what most parents are doing now is they're preparing the road for the child when what they should be doing is preparing the child for the road. And I think it's a great quote. I think it's so apt because it is true that when we go through challenges, we come out stronger. And so when we have positive emotions, and particularly when those positive emotions arise from challenges we've overcome, from difficulties we've worked through, it helps us to appreciate things more and recognize that times aren't always easy. And it also builds up our resilience because we feel as though if we can overcome that, we can overcome whatever's next. And if we look at it that way, and we look at it from the perspective of stuff we've been through, if we've never had to brook any disappointment, if we've never had to overcome any obstacles or challenges, it becomes very difficult to be able to do that at a later stage. if we've already lived that, if we've already experienced that, then other things we go through in our lives seem like nothing in comparison. One of the great adages about this is health, right? People always say we all take our health for granted until we don't have it anymore. The minute that we have a health problem, we start to appreciate it much more. And all we care about at that point is having our health back. If we only had our health back, nothing else matters, right? All the other little issues we had in our lives, we would gladly take them if we could have our health back. And it's very true that if we then overcome that, we feel as though it's something that we can overcome anything. So positive emotions contribute to resilience and they allow us to bounce back from setbacks and stress more effectively. They also enable people to see challenges from a more constructive perspective. So instead of seeing it as, why does this always happen to me? Oh, woe is me. This is terrible. People look at it as an opportunity and another obstacle to overcome and another story they're going to be able to tell once they do about how great it was. I remember when I was starting out building my digital business and I was working full time and I was raising a family. I already had the mortgage and the car payments and all that other stuff. So I didn't have a safety net. I didn't have anything to fall back on. I had to pay the mortgage. We had to make sure that we could pay our bills and all that kind of stuff. And I was raising a family and I was going to graduate school also. And I started my business in with that as the backdrop. And I had one instinct on one side of me saying, oh, poor me, this is so hard. If only I was like everybody else and I could just do this when I didn't have all this other stuff I had to deal with, it would be so much easier, which is 100% true. But the other side of me then on my other shoulder came out and said, listen, this is going to be a great story that you can tell for years to come. Because the fact of the matter is, if you want to be in a situation where you want to be able to help people down the road and help show them the way, how are you going to do that with any credibility if everything was laid out for you and everything just worked the first time you did it and it was easy and there were no obstacles? What makes it powerful, what makes my perspective able to be beneficial and helpful for other people is the fact that I did it with the backdrop of all these obstacles. So the idea is no matter what obstacles you've got in front of you, you can overcome that. And that is really the lesson. I would much rather learn from somebody who's overcome stuff to get to where they are than someone who just had everything laid out for them and it was really easy. Because to me, that's not really that impressive, to be honest. So the fact of the matter is, it allows us to approach things from a more constructive perspective and foster adaptive coping strategies. So we get very good at that. The fourth tangible benefit is enhanced social connections. Positive emotions can lead to increased social interaction and stronger relationships. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I have. I've had days where I've gotten up and I've just felt a little bit grumpy. And so I go about my day, I drop my kid off at school and I go over to the grocery store and everybody seems a little bit colder, a little bit meaner that day. Nobody's smiling. And there just doesn't seem to be a lot of energy that's positive. People seem a little bit annoying, like they're in the way when you're at the checkout and they can't figure out how to find their payment method and they can't scan in the item. And every little thing seems to be an issue. And flip side of that is you have a good day where you're feeling great. You're on top of the world for one reason or another. You go and all the lights seem green. You show up at the store and the parking spot you wanted is open. You go in, the fruit looks fresh, like everything looks good. The clerks are smiling at you. The people seem friendly and warm. The irony is there's no difference in the people whatsoever or the environment itself. It's all us. When I'm in a negative emotional state, I put other people off. They see me and react negatively. So then I'm thinking they're being negative when it's all my own fault. Because if I just went into it with the perspective of feeling positive and happy, and I had a smile, that invites other people in. When we smile, it makes other people smile. It's contagious. When we are standoffish and grumpy, it makes other people standoffish and grumpy with us because they're afraid. They don't want to interact. And so the irony is we are less socially active and engaged when we're in those negative states. And when we're in the positive state, we are friendlier, more socially engaged, and everything seems brighter and happier and everyone seems nicer all of a sudden. But it actually is just reflected glow from ourselves because we create that from how we feel from within. So having that positive emotion helps increase our social interaction and build stronger relationships. It facilitates bonding, cooperation, and supportive interactions. You let somebody go ahead of you. You give them your cart. All of the little things that you do make a big difference. I remember hearing a story about Starbucks where somebody went through the Starbucks line and they said, you know what? I'm going to pay for the order for the guy behind me. And when that person got to the window and the person said, oh, the person ahead of you already paid for this, they were so shocked, but they were so moved by it. They said, okay, I'm going to pay for the order for the guy behind me. And this went on and on. I forget how many people, but it was like dozens and dozens of people in a given day that no one paid for their own order because they were all paying it forward to somebody because they got something. And so you could see how it's contagious. These are all complete strangers that don't know each other. And they were all doing that because of the fact that somebody felt a positive emotion, acted on it, and that had a ricochet effect and a butterfly effect that affected everybody else. So it contributes to a stronger social network and a stronger support system. Because the more people we have in our lifeboat, the better off we're going to be. We all are going to need people at some point or another, whether it's for an emotional pick me up, for advice, or whatever else it is. And the more connected we are with other people, the richer our lives are. The fifth benefit is increased productivity and creativity. This one is pretty self explanatory and pretty self evident, right? If you've ever had a day where you woke up and you felt good, the sun was shining, the birds were chirping, and you just felt good, you know it. That you had a more productive day that day. You crushed everything. Your creativity was just flowing. Everything seemed to just work the way you wanted it to, and everything goes really well. People who experience positive emotions regularly are often more engaged, they're more creative, and they're more productive at work because the fact of the matter is, when we're in a negative mind frame or we're stressed, our creative side of ourselves shuts down. We turn to fight and flight, and all the creativity we had disappears. When we're experiencing positive emotions, it's the opposite. All that opens up. We see the world for opportunity and possibility, and that creates additional opportunity and possibility and productivity. So positive emotions can broaden individuals' attention and thinking and enhance their ability to solve problems and foster innovative thinking. And again, these things are contagious. So when we feel that way, if we're in the midst of other people, that's going to rub off and they're going to feel that way as well. The sixth benefit is better decision making. And decision making is vitally important, even though very few people talk about it. The fact of the matter is, especially as an entrepreneur, the decisions you make in large part will determine your success or failure. Positive emotions can lead to more effective decision making skills. We're coming from a place of abundance and positivity. So we are generally, if we're experiencing positive emotional states, we're more likely to consider a wider range of information and options before we make decisions. We're likely to make decisions based on the lens of optimism as opposed to pessimism. And so we're much more likely to shoot for a greater outcome and therefore much more likely to achieve it. So we see more possibilities and it gives us more options to make the right decision. And then the seventh benefit is psychological growth and development, right? We're sharpening the saw. We always want to be growing ourselves because that is a hallmark of a successful life. When we are growing and developing as people, that gives the richness, value, and meaning to our lives. So the broaden and build theory that was proposed by psychologist Barbara Fredrickson suggests that positive emotions expand an individual's awareness and encourage novel, varied, and exploratory thoughts and actions, right? So over time, this broadened behavioral repertoire builds skills and resources that contribute to flourishing and personal growth. And that stuff is very important because personal growth is a hallmark of a life lived successfully. Now, there are other benefits too, but those are 7 real tangible ways that our lives improve when we spend lots of time in positive emotional states. Look, it's not always easy to be feeling great about everything. but the more we can, the better off we are. So the takeaway here is that positive emotions go beyond giving us a temporary boost to our mood and energy. They have real, long lasting impacts on our lives in profound ways. While no one can always be in a positive state 100% of the time, by having an awareness of it and knowing how powerful and transformative it can be, it helps us regain focus and strive toward being in a positive emotional state as often as possible versus just letting life happen and letting whatever emotions that come flood our senses. That, in turn, gives us more control over our own lives and destinies, which is a much more effective way to live.